Lady and the Tramp, Chapter 3. In the train yard, things were bustling. Trains hissed with steam and brakes screeched as workers shoveled coal into the beds of various train cars. Dark soot lifted into the air. A bit farther down the yard, men slammed large hammers onto metal, shaping it into rails. It was noisy, dirty, and hot. A far cry from the peace and quiet of the tree-lined street where Lady lived. In an abandoned train car, in the middle of the yard, Tramp slept, not bothered by the noise or the trash that lined the floor. Tramp was considered a mutt, a mix of different dog breeds, and this was his home. He lived wild and free, no collar to keep him restrained, no family to keep him trapped. Getting to his feet, Tramp stretched and let out a big yawn. He shook his shaggy gray coat and gave his ear a scratch. "Isn't this the life?" he said to himself, genuinely happy. "Hey, no trespassing!" Hearing the loud, angry voice, Tramp looked toward the open door of the train car. A moment later, the foreman's face appeared. He pulled himself into the car. As the foreman stomped toward him, Tramp dodged out of the way. "Guess we're starting early today," he said to himself as he slipped out the door. Behind him, he heard muttering from the foreman and then the crunch of rocks as the big man jumped out of the car and gave chase. Tramp didn't run out of fear. His stride stayed even. He had done this song and dance with the foreman before. It was almost a game at this point, like the game of fetch dogs with families played with their owners. Only in this case, Tramp was the ball and he was trying not to get caught. Leaping over a rail and through a train car, Tramp easily made his way through the yard. He knew where the best hiding spots were and which paths to take to avoid the unfriendly foreman. After years of making the train yard his home base, he was considered a local to the various workers too. Now, as he passed by a line of welders, masks down over their face, he heard several of them calling out and greeting. "Check it out, it's Buddy," one of them said. "Better speed up, pal," another said, nodding at the foreman who was gaining on the dog. Tramp picked up speed. He still wasn't worried. He leaped over a thin tuff and landed lightly on a narrow set of rails. Behind him, he heard a splash and a shout as the foreman tried to follow and ended up falling in the muddy water next to the rails instead. Looking back, Tramp saw the stuck foreman. With a wag of his tail, Tramp turned and sauntered out of the train yard. The workers hooted and hollered. It didn't matter how many mornings Tramp outsmarted the foreman. It made them smile every time. To the workers in the train yard, he was a hero. As Tramp made his way along the outskirts of the town, the sounds and smells of the train yard faded. He passed the docks, busy with workers preparing the river boats that would cruise passengers up and down the shore, entertaining them with jazz music and plying them with delicious feasts. Workers waved and shouted hello. Tramp was a familiar sight everywhere he walked. Soon, the gentle breeze from the river disappeared as Tramp entered the busier streets and alleys that made up the city center. Tramp didn't like it there. Downtown meant more people, and that meant more people who might complain about a stray dog, which meant dog catchers, and Tramp hated dog catchers. Peering around a corner, Tramp scanned the square in front of him for any signs of danger. Spotting none, he slipped down the sidewalk and into the nearest alley. The dark, narrow space seemed empty. But Tramp knew better than to take any chances. This was Isaac's alley. "Isaac!" Tramp called out. "Isaac, you here?" When no one responded, Tramp trotted further into the alley. Following his nose, he made his way to a huge trash can. It was overflowing with delicious treasure. Old bones, leftover food, sausage links. Tramp's stomach growled. Jumping up, he grabbed a link of sausages in his mouth, and he was just about to bite down when a low growl echoed through the alley. Tramp froze. Get your paws off my stuff. Slowly, Tramp turned around. Towering behind him was Isaac. The brawny dog's lips were curled up, revealing his sharp teeth. Tramp let the sausages drop from his mouth as he took a few steps back. Isaac, he said, laying on the charm. I was just looking for you. How are you, my big, sweet, kind friend? Do I look like a pug to you? Isaac snarled. Tramp bit back a laugh. No, He started to explain and then thought better of it. Never mind. The big dog's brains did not match his body. Puffing up his chest, Isaac stalked closer to Tramp. There were two things Isaac hated: being made fun of and having his stuff taken. Right then, Tramp seemed to be doing both, and Isaac did not like it one bit. Someone has been stealing from my stash, he said. Should have known it would be a dirty tramp like you. Tramp put on his most innocent face. You think I was stealing? Come on, Isaac. I'm no thief. Isaac eyed the sausages. Then what are you doing with those? Looking down at the string of sausages at his feet, Tramp hesitated. The last thing he wanted was to have Isaac after him for the rest of the day. Think, think, Tramp chanted to himself in his head. Then he smiled. That was it. He just had to outthink Isaac. That couldn't be too hard. Taking a deep breath, as if he had just had a great revelation, Tramp tapped the sausages. Oh, I see what happened, he said. No, see, these are my sausages. Isaac cocked his head. What? He was clearly confused, which was just how Tramp wanted him. I heard someone was lifting your stuff, Tramp went on. He lowered his voice and then added as though it were a secret. A lot of the dogs are talking about it. There was something Isaac hated even more than having his stuff stolen and being made fun of, and that was other dogs talking about him behind his back. Who's talking? He growled. Tramp pushed ahead, motioning very quickly that he had, of course, not wanted Isaac to go hungry or be made a fool of because the sausages were being taken. So, out of the kindness of his heart, he had brought his own sausages to share. Share? Isaac asked. Tramp nodded. How does half sound? Isaac shook his head. Nice try, smart guy. But I'm going to take a lot more than half your sausages. How about 60-40? Tramp said, as though it were really kind of him to offer that. In reality, he was still winning out. 70-40, Isaac countered. Tramp pretended to give in. He pushed just slightly more than half toward Isaac, then gathered the rest of the sausages for himself. Serves me right, trying to match wits with you. You just talked me out of half my sausages. Eager to get out while the getting was good, Tramp headed out of the alley. Another narrow escape. The morning really was off to a good start. The end of chapter 3.